All right, welcome. This is Fade to Black. Got no music tonight. Well, I do. Right before showtime, a computer went down. So that's it. We're going live right now without music. This is Fade to Black. Of all the days after this long Labor Day weekend and what we did, I'll get to all of that in a second. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, September 8th. We are 240 days into the new year, 115 days left. All right, as always, we are live from the City of Angel Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California. COA Vapor, makers of the Fade to Black e-juice. It's called Fader Loops. Just go to the COA banner at jimmychurchradio.com. You can use the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Knot special. What is up, Fader Knots? Can you tell? I've got no pipes today. I will do my best to get to the show, but we'll make it. We will get through it. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking? I am ready. I'll go over the weekend here in a second, but tonight we have very special guest Cheryl Jones is with us, and we're going to cover mass media tonight. We're going to cover some ufology, her career as a journalist and a news reporter and an anchor in dealing with mass media and the paranormal and ufology. We'll be doing all of that. And then tomorrow night, Brian Forrester will be right here. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. We will probably be taking some phone calls tonight. Cheryl will be speaking later on this month at the MUFON Symposium, September 23rd through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine, right here in Irvine, California. Of course, I will be doing the Hangar 1 emceeing on Saturday night. I look forward to meeting all of you Fader Knots. Come on down. And also, don't forget about the Skyfire Summit, Travis Walton. Mark your calendars for this one. That is November 5th through the 8th, 2015. Speakers are Travis Walton, David Hatcher Childress, who was on the show last week, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, Lee Spiegel, Tracy Torme, Ben Hansen, James Fox, Lynn Katai, Jennifer Stein, No Torres, Alejandro Rojas, and Paula Harris is going to be there too as well. Fade to Blog got active over the weekend. Allison Bell, right there, very proud. Fade to Blog is up. Fade to Blog is up and running. If you want to write for us, just send an email to Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. Very simple. All right, now we just came off of a very fun, a gnarly weekend. Oh man, I can't put it into words. We were just completely bombed. Friday night, we had to prep for our nephew's wedding, which was Saturday, and that type of wedding starts at it's a little different than what we normally do here in the States, but it starts off at early in the morning, and you are going from house to house to house. You're at the bride's house, you're at the godfather's house, you're at the parents' house. You do everything before you ever get to the wedding. Then the wedding goes down. It's about an hour, and then you go from there and to the reception. So it's 9 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning. That was Saturday. Then Sunday, we went to Flappers Comedy Club here in Burbank, and that's what we did Saturday night. And what was funny is there was a lot of our family members. We all went together, knowing what we had done all day and all night the day before on Saturday. We did Flappers, and then yesterday we cooked out with the family. So heck of a weekend. And then I woke up today with a cold. And I've been fighting this all day long. And you know what? I asked for it. We definitely burnt the candle at both ends this past weekend. But we had a great time. And I hope everybody out there hung out with your family. Labor Day is it's such a somebody had I think it was Renee. She sent me a little thing. It was a fader fact that Labor Day is a Canadian holiday. I didn't know that. Is that right? It's a Canadian holiday. But anyway, it's an opportunity here for us to look. Costco was shut down on Monday. You know what I mean? It's a serious holiday, and I hope that everybody spent time with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and you cooked out and you had a great time. We did. We let it down good. And of course, we took yesterday off. We did the replay last night with Vahan Setyan, and somehow even pulled that off because I have no idea how all of that came together after the weekend that we had. But pulled everything off. Took the day off yesterday. Needed today off as well. But here we are. And then 5 minutes before showtime, Windows 10. There it goes. Just decides to update. Unbelievable. And let's see if it's back up and running. Unbelievable. Windows 10. Anyway, Rita made me swear that I would never mention Windows 10 again on the air, so I'm not. But it just chooses to do these arbitrary, just whenever it wants to, updates. It's absolutely bizarre. But it looks like we're good to go. Okay, maybe just maybe I'm going to do one click here and just see if we can actually head into a commercial. Yeah, okay, we're back up. We are live. It looks like everything is working. Yeah. Okay, now I can get back to business. Okay. And I will pause that because I don't need that. I'm going to do this next. Normally this is all set up. Now I got to do this on the fly. I'll fix everything on the break though. Okay. Now, let's get the show cracking. Okay, I'm ready. I can focus now. Today, Pink is 36 years old. Pink is 36. I like Pink, by the way. I think she's got genuine pipes. I think she's uber talented, man. I dig Pink. I think she's cool. I think she's got talent. 36 years old. Chumley today is 33. You know him from what's that show called Pawn Stars? Chumley. I like Pawn Stars. Chumley today is 33 years old. Also today, actor Martin Freeman is 44. And Martin made the list because he starred in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But he also starred as Bilbo Baggins. Yeah, and all those Peter Jackson films. So there you go. Martin Freeman today is 44. Our dead guy's birthday today is, moment of silence, one of the greats, influenced me throughout my life, Peter Sellers. 1925 to 1980, died at the age of 54. And one of my absolute top 10 greatest films, not greatest comedy, not greatest this, not greatest that, not greatest black and white. No, greatest films of all time. When he portrayed Group Captain Lionel Mandrake. That's right. Also, President Merkin Muffley and Dr. Strangelove. In Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, one of the greatest movies ever, Stanley Kubrick. Enough said. And of course, he played Inspector Clouseau in all of the Pink Panther movies. Well, not all of them. I think he did like 5. But then, on July 21st, 1980, Sellers arrived in London and visited for the first time the location of his parents' ashes. He had never been there. The next day, Sellers took lunch in his hotel suite. He was eating lunch. And right after that, collapsed from a heart attack. He was taken to Middlesex Hospital in London and died just after midnight on July 24th, 1980, the very young age of 54 years old, which brings us to Twitter. And I just got to do this. I'm going to test. I'm going to, turn off updates. I hear you, Dennis. Let's light up Twitter. I'm going to test the Fadernauts with Dr. Strangelove, because that movie has got 1 million quotes in it. What's the best line? Somebody's going to come in with some Pink Panther. You can't avoid it. I know that. But Dr. Strangelove had the quotes. Absolutely amazing movie. So there you go. Slide it up on Twitter. How about I'll start it off. I have a string in my leg. All right. This is Fade to Black. Don't forget, the word of the day is spoon. Spoon just rolls off the tongue. Spoon. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Facebook is JimmyChurchRadio.com. YouTube, I think it's just Jimmy Church Radio. I think we dropped the .com. I think it's just Jimmy Church Radio, but no spaces. And then YouTube is KJCR Fade to Black. Everything is Fade to Black or J Church Radio. You can go and figure it all out. Just follow, like, and subscribe. You can email throughout the show. I'll get to as many of them as I can. They're already coming in now. Next week, I'm going to say this. I'm going to tip my hat a little bit. Next week, we have 2 guests that I have been trying to book for 2 years. They're both landing in the same week. Big stuff coming next week. And next week, third guest has an exclusive, some breaking news that will be going down next week. And I will say this. Something has been decoded. You figure that out. All right. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com is the email. You can also email directly from the website if you go to the contact page and hit us there, where we use non-NSA, specially encrypted servers. We have a new column in TweetDeck. Well, it's not new. We have a column in TweetDeck, hashtag F2BQ. Any questions directly to me or to Cheryl Jones tonight, you can do it at hashtag F2BQ. That's Fade to Black and Q. With that, let's see if the Q is working. This is Fade to Black. Look, it's working. Windows 10. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Matthew. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Yeah. I partied all weekend. Brian just said, is it me? Yeah, no, it's not you, Brian. We tore it up, man. We tore it up for 3-4 straight nights. Man. I'll get it back, though. Don't worry. By tomorrow. Oh, yeah. You're going to have to ask Cheryl Jones about that tonight. What do you do? What are you doing with the mass media when you just tear it up for the weekend and you've got a show to do Monday night and you've lost your pipes? You know, what do you do? No, normally I have volume. Right now I don't have volume. I could probably go low. I could probably do this all night. But I don't have that forceful, loud thing. No, I don't have it tonight. Nope. And normally I'm the loudest guy in the room. Tonight I couldn't do that. I'd be the quiet guy in the corner. All right. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Cheryl Jones is with us. Tomorrow night, Brian Forrester right here. Thursday night, open lines, fader night, a real fader night. Open lines on Thursday. All right. On this day in history, a big day for us in our generation. On this day in history, in 2003, the RIAA begins suing individual sharers of copyrighted MP3 files. That's right. Started kicking down the doors. You're sitting there goofing around. FBI, Homeland Security kicks down your front door because you just shared your Metallica MP3 file. There you go. 2003. Fader facts. The farthest a tornado has ever blown a person, a human body, was a mile in Kickapoo, Kansas. Insert your own joke. Kickapoo, Kansas, on May 1st, 1930. 1 mile in Kansas, no less. Wow. All right. All the news that you know nothing about. This has been all over the web all weekend, and I couldn't wait to get to this tonight on the show. But yes, archaeologists now say they have uncovered a superhenge 15 times larger and less than 2 miles from Stonehenge. The Stonehenge Hidden Landscape Project team says it has made the discovery beneath Durrington Walls, also known as a superhenge, one of the largest known henge monuments built before Stonehenge. And now the dating that is going out in the mass media is a bit strange, too, as well. They're saying, Stonehenge was built around 1,000 to 1,500 BC. Kind of strange, only 3,500 years old. Up to 30 stones intact have been detected, measuring in up to 14.7 feet by 5 feet by 3.3 feet. And they've survived below the bank. They're about 3 feet deep, buried in the dirt. The rest of the stones are fragmentary or represented by massive foundation pits that the stones were erected in. They're saying that it's about 4,500 years old, about 1,000 years older than Stonehenge. We got to get some correct dating here, but the point is, it's massive. There's a really cool, we have videos up over at Jimmy Church Radio over on the Facebook page. One of them is an animated flyby of what the henge would look like, and then a couple are on location there. It is massive. It's only 2 miles from Stonehenge, and why they're just discovering it now. Thank you, Allison, for that. Allison just tweeted out one of the pictures that has been posted, and I'm retweeting that now. Thank you so much, Allison. It's incredible. It's an incredible sight. And again, stones 15 feet tall, 5 feet wide, 3.3 feet thick, 30 of them intact. Exciting news. We don't know anything. Kim Davis was released today. And but the judge bars her from withholding marriage licenses. So, and I was thinking about this today, and this isn't a political show, and I don't go into religion, and I don't do it, but there is just something fundamentally wrong here with this entire treatment of this through the mass media, through what was going on by the demonstration today in front of the detention facility. Mike Huckabee showing up there, just a total opportunist. Totally messed up. He should not be mixing himself up into something like this. And then Huckabee, or any politician, just forget about Huckabee, but for anybody to jump in and say, hey, I'll do the jail time. What do you mean? You would do the jail? You cannot confuse church and state, number one. You can't combine the two. Second, when you are a state employee like that and a county clerk at that, and you're wielding that kind of power, which a county clerk does, and you're in that position, well, one of the things when you swear into that office, you're upholding the Constitution. And that's it. We can't have anybody raising religious sides of anything when it comes to a job, especially when it comes to being a civil servant. And that goes from the police to the army to government officials to a county clerk. We cannot go there. We don't allow it in the private sector. And I heard Mike Huckabee today. Now look, I don't care about people's religious views. I don't care if this woman wants to make a Humvee a religious icon and start her own church, the Royal Order of whatever, the Humvees. I could care less. That's what makes this country great. But you cannot disobey. This is a country of laws as well. And you just can't. It's the Supreme Court made this decision. And everybody has the right. And you cannot sit there and come out and like you've won something and cheering over something like this. So, and my point is this. Let me make this really simple. So I guess Mike Huckabee is going to be cool when he plops down his Haagen-Dazs at the local market and the cashier says, hey, gluttony is a sin. I can't sell you this. Right? Huckabee? Idiot. God, man, all politicians. God, man, every single one of them. For him to just sit there and say that stuff today. What an opportunist. And he's completely wrong. And he's trying to run for government office. So I guess for president, for POTUS. So I guess it's okay to just walk around and go, dude, whatever the Supreme Court says, it doesn't matter. Forget laws. That's what he's saying. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Jeez. Man. Okay. I got to drink some more coffee. My throat is toast. A representative of a mysterious treasure hunter has told the German tabloid Bild that he has discovered an underground gold cache near the Russian city of Smolensk, which was placed there by the Soviets when they retreated during the German onslaught in 1941. According to his Berlin-based lawyer, Michael Cantor, the gold seeker risked his life to use a geo-scanning radar to go around Smolensk. And he found this shaft that 17 meters underground where he found 5 or 6 trucks laden with, check this, 100 tons of jewelry, precious stones, and gold bullion. And it's all untouched. Now, do the math. Just assuming that the 100 tons is just gold, generic gold bars, the market value today, $3.4 billion. Unbelievable. Hey, did you see the meteor yesterday in Thailand, where everybody was stunned at daylight meteor streaked through the skies, and it's all over social media. The dash cam video is over at on our Facebook page. The dash cam video was absolutely nuts, and then it looks like it exploded. No reported damage or anything, but pretty dang incredible. Reminds me of the Russian one. And I've seen my daytime meteor, saw it in the San Fernando Valley a couple of years ago. Didn't see it explode like that though. And man, I mean, the one that I saw as it went across the sky, and what was weird is we caught it when it was low. It was like low. I'm going to guess and say, to my eyes, a few thousand feet, maybe, because you could hear it. Just like you could hear a plane engine, you could hear this thing crackling, smoking, and you could see the flames and everything, and the smoke just going across the sky, making, it was crackling. And then it just flew right behind the mountains here, the San Gabriel Mountains, and it looked like it landed up in Santa Clarita or something. It was close enough, though. But again, close enough maybe to go meteorite hunting, but no explosion. Absolutely nuts. And let's see. Oh, yeah. Starting with the season opener this year in the NFL, the New England Patriots against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be Thursday, September 10th, 2 days. Movement tracking sensors will be embedded on each football player's shoulder pad that can wirelessly emit unique radio frequencies to that player. The NFL has partnered up with RFID chip tracking company Zebra to equip every stadium with 20 receivers. This device will generate an enormous, huge amount of real-time data and usable statistics, including how fast a player is running, his position, and the distance that he has traveled. Absolutely crazy. We thought it was going to be in our hands first, but no, the NFL beat us to it. We thought it was going to be embedded on our person. NFL is first. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. When I come back after this short break, we'll be joined with Cheryl Jones. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network in KGRA, The Planet.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Peggy, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fadernauts. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go back, Lee Tappy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back. All right. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Going to try to keep my pipes together tonight. So excited. And one of the things that I talk about so much on this show is mass media. And even though, in some regards, I'm kind of like in that mix, I'm not a major network. I'm not CNN. I'm not Fox. I'm not MSNBC. I'm not even Yahoo. I'm not any part, of that size. But I still report the news, and I have a live talk radio show every single night. And I also co-host over at Coast to Coast AM, guest host over there. So in some regards, I'm part of that mix. But one of the things that fascinates me today is how society is steered by the mass media. I talk about it all the time. And one of my favorite things to say on this show is watch the news. Watch mass media. Take that news report, whatever it is, flip it over 180 degrees, go in the opposite direction, and then you're somewhere close to what the truth is. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's car tires, if it's perfume, if it's food, if it's Ebola, whatever it is, flip it over 180 degrees. And that's what I feel. I could be completely wrong, but one of the things that I love to do is bring on somebody like Cheryl Jones, who has been there and has anchored, has been a journalist, a beat reporter. She's done it all, and also a meteorologist. And to get their take on what really goes on the inside and the way that our society responds to it, it's fascinating. Cheryl Jones is an accomplished TV broadcasting journalist. She has covered extensive experience on both sides of the camera, starting as a weather reporter. She quickly extended her skills and credentials to include talk show host, producer, field reporter, writer, network news anchor. She is uniquely distinguished as the only TV broadcaster to be both news anchor and a degreed meteorologist at the network level. Her career has taken her from her hometown in Knoxville, Tennessee, to major markets including Miami, Atlanta, New York, Denver, Kansas City, and West Palm Beach. Through Cheryl's primetime broadcast on CNN and the Weather Channel, her face and voice became familiar to viewers in millions of homes around the world. Cheryl's numerous professional awards include being named Woman of the Year by Women in Communications and Distinguished Alumnus of the Year by Metropolitan State College in Denver, Colorado. And she is a featured speaker this month at the MUFON Symposium in Irvine, California. I would like to welcome to the show Miss Cheryl Jones. Good evening, Cheryl. How are you?
Good evening, Jimmy. Man, what an introduction. Thank you for that. I'm tired already.
Cheryl, we're going to have a great time tonight, but
I can't wait, and I hope your voice holds up because you're going to have to be doing a lot of talking.
Let's start there. What do you do? You know, when you're either on a market like Miami, Atlanta, or Kansas City, or New York or Atlanta, and you just went out and tied one on for 3 days, and you and it's Monday and you got to go to work. Can you call in sick?
Well, I don't think I'd want to do that too often. I didn't have too many hangovers. I was just exhausted all the time from all of the shift work that I ended up doing for so many years. But I know you've had quite a weekend, and I don't know how you're doing it tonight, Jimmy, after what you've been through.
Yeah.
What a fabulous weekend you've had, from what I hear.
And I couldn't do it in moderation. When it's a family wedding, and then you're at a comedy club, and then it's Labor Day family cookout. I had my obligations, and I held to them. So
well,
there you
and
go.
as well you should have, and you did well, and I'm sure everyone loves you for that. But
did you?
Yes, I don't think you could do that every weekend.
Did you?
I think you would wear out a little quickly there.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever anchor with a cold?
Yes, I have. It's tough to do, and of course you do the hot lemon water and everything else that you can do. I only had one time over the years that something really strange happened to me, because most of my work was live television, years and years and years and hours and hundreds and thousands of hours of live television. So that gets pretty dicey at times, as you know. But one time in Denver, I was anchoring the news, and all of a sudden I opened my mouth, and nothing comes out. There's no volume. It only happened once. Somebody got me some water, my co-anchor took over, and we finished out the show. But it just left for a few minutes, and who knows what happened.
I actually had a speaking engagement it was about 15 years ago. I did a lot of public speaking in the music business. And I was cool, and I'd spoke the night before, and I woke up. This was in Miami, and I woke up that morning, and I didn't feel quite right, and we were on our way to I think it was at a college in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, and I turned to my friend. And I started to talk in the car, and I had no voice. It was gone. It was
that's what happened to me. One time I had a nosebleed that just started right before going on the air. That was in Kansas City. And people behind the scenes, the sportscaster, the anchorman, everybody was saying, oh, do this, put a piece of brown paper on your forehead and circle 3 times or whatever. We were doing everything under the sun. And actually, the sportscaster was preparing to take over. At that time, I was doing weather. And finally, by some miracle, it stopped, and I got on the air. But there have been some pretty close calls over the years.
Yeah.
And then there's the hiccups can hit people. When you're on the air for so many years and it's live television, things are going to happen. They just are. And I've been on the air when those kinds of things have happened to people whom I've been working with, and I've taken over for them. And so it's just part of it. It's just the way it is. It's live, and you just know things are going to happen. And as you know, you get used to just handling it, whatever it is.
I've been lucky. I'm live every single night, and I've been cold-free. I had a little cold maybe a couple of years ago or something, which only lasted for a day. But I've been very, very, very lucky every single night. I've been able to pull that off. But listen, I have so many questions tonight. We're going to have a great conversation because there's so much going on in the world, and I've got a million questions for you. But before we get there, my career, how I ended up here, and I went through the music business for 20 years before I went back to school for broadcasting, and which I didn't do until the mid 2000s. For you, it was a bit different. Did you always want to be a newscaster? Did you? I always had it in the back of my mind that I was going to end up doing radio someday. So I got my yayas out, over the music business and did all of that stuff and had a great time. And then eventually I knew I was going to be doing this at some point. But this was your career. Did you want to do this at the age of 10?
No, actually, I just kind of evolved into it during my first tenure, my first degree. I just really enjoyed the speech classes, the journalism classes, the performances with plays and so on, and that was just kind of a fun thing for me to do. I never thought any of those skills that I was learning would have anything to do with what I ended up doing later in life. And so I just, every chance I got, I would, be involved in whatever I could in those areas. And my first job, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
I sold pots and pans door to door.
Ah, we all did that. Yeah, good for you.
Yes, I did. At the time, there were just when I got out of the University of Tennessee, the first degree, I couldn't find a job that fit what I wanted to do. So that was a different time from now, where there are so many varied jobs available. And I had been teaching exercise classes at a local exercise business. And the owner actually owned a cookware company, and he kept saying, "You really need to, work with us on this and this." And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that. I have a degree." And now the world is waiting for me, right?
Right.
But then the more I thought about it, and the more I found out what was really out there and available, I didn't find anything that I really wanted to jump into. So I thought, well, I could do this for a little while, and I'd probably learn some skills that might transfer into whatever I end up doing. And so I started selling pots and pans, and actually it was really good. I always laugh and say that it's probably the best prerequisite a broadcast journalist could ever have, because if you do that for a little while, then you certainly learn the art of rejection and surviving it, especially when you're knocking on a strange door and you're telling the person who answers the door that you would give them a free set of steak knives if they'd let you demonstrate your cookware.
You know what? I did 3 years at McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
I absolutely did. Yep. 15.
Well, I think those kinds of things really are very important, and it doesn't matter that you make no money. What matters is the experience and the skills that you acquire, and the main thing that I was interested in was learning some skill that I could transfer over into whatever I ended up eventually doing. Now, I always liked television news, and I found it fascinating. Growing up in the Southeast, obviously there is a Southern accent that is quite prevalent in this area, but I noticed that the people giving the news didn't have the Southern accent, and I thought, well, if I'm ever going to do anything, I'd better figure out how to overcome that. So I did. I started working on the Southern accent, and it changed from market to market as I went from here to there, but it always seemed to blend in somehow, and it was quite interesting. And so I started out in weather, then I had a talk show and became a producer, and the first talk show I had was a live debate format talk show, and it was on every morning with live call-in phones for callers. And this was in the beginning when there really wasn't a 7-second delay like we have now to protect you against something that needs to be cut.
Ooh.
And it had some pretty interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was really by the seat of the pants. And I am forever grateful for that. I'm grateful that I had the beginning in broadcasting that I had, because I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have an intern. I didn't have a secretary. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have all of those nice things that we have today. And it really teaches you to just grin and bear it and go on, and whatever it takes, you get there from here.
Well,
and you survive it. And so I appreciated that.
Did you, when you were taking your journalism classes and stuff in college, did you do, radio at the college radio station? Did you do any television at the college level? And did they prep you? Did you find out what the 250 markets were and what the pay scale was in Wichita? Did they talk to you about those things?
No, actually, I didn't. I didn't do that in college. I ended up doing, with the first television station that I worked at, I ended up doing some radio. I was doing weather. I was doing, shortly I started doing a talk show. You're just all over the place doing everything that needs to be done and sweep the floor while you're at it. And so, no, they really didn't emphasize that all that much. You just knew that there wasn't much money in the beginning. If you ever got into a position as your career evolved where you made significant money or a decent salary, it would be a while, and you had to earn your stripes to get there. It wasn't an overnight success, and you didn't expect that. And really, I've never looked at the career or anything that I've ever done for the money, and I'm glad for that, because I've taken jobs and turned down other jobs. I've taken a job that didn't pay as much as another one because of certain factors involved in it that I felt were more valuable. So, but you learn that you go up the ladder and you go from smaller markets to larger markets, except now it's not quite that way. Now someone, depending on their position in society, can just spring load into the top on occasion.
What was your, when you're starting out, and I don't want to talk about myself, but what I wanted to do, aside from radio, I wanted to be that community street reporter guy, and go out and change the world and help his community. Did you look at journalism and reporting the same way? Did you want to go out and change the world?
Yes, and you really, you're pretty naive in the beginning. You think you can.
Right. Yes, that's exactly my point.
You think that everybody's waiting to hear what you have to say.
Right.
You, for some special reason, you have been given a unique insight that no one else has. Did you ever feel that way?
That's why I'm asking, and it's so funny how I feel so grown up and mature now. When I found out that it wasn't about me, it's about the news story or it's about the guest, and it's not about me. That's why I said I don't even want to talk about myself right now. But
but that's okay. That's okay. It's a part of the whole structure of what we're talking about. But you hit on something very important, not about me. And let me tell you just a little story about how that point was brought home to me early on in my career. It was my first job in Knoxville at WBIR Television. And that's where I started out as a weather reporter on weekend, and then quickly moved up to the weeknight and then the talk show. And then I was doing both the talk show, producing and hosting and booking and beating the bushes with, to find a guest that could talk on the air, and debate format. Nothing easy was allowed. And that was good. It was a changing time, and I think we were, in that sense, somewhat of, kind of pioneers in that way. But my program director, his name was Pete Finley, and he was just the best. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he would talk to me and about the guests that I wanted to book on the show, and he always wanted at least 2 different opinions. Nothing easy, no charities or anything like that, although that's, those had their place, but not for this show. And so he said, and remember, you are never the star. You are never the star. It's always the story, the guest, or what you're talking about, but it's not you. And he didn't mean that personally to me so much as, it's not the person, it's not the broadcaster. It's not the person there with that big television name and the lights and, what people see as glamour, which it's not. It's all work. But that hit home to me, and I have always thanked him for making that point so well to me, because it really fit. It just fit. And that's the way I always approach a situation, whether I was doing weather, it was the high pressure or the storm or the tornado or the rain or the temperature or whatever it was. That was a star. It wasn't me. I was there to focus on that and to take the audience focus to that. The same thing with a guest, the same thing with a topic. And so I work like a crazy person before I go on the air, but then when the light comes on, I'm not even there in my own mind. And so that has worked for me.
It's a tough lesson, isn't it?
It is really a tough lesson, but I see it so frequently not acknowledged. You know what I'm saying, to put it mildly.
Oh,
because people can sometimes get caught up in their own PR.
Yes.
And leave their own PR. I mean, that's good and that's fine, and you have to have it, and it's a part of the job and all of that. But when it comes down to story time, to delivery time, to work time, you've got to put yourself aside. And if you're interviewing someone, the way I feel about it, you have to get into that person.
Yeah,
you do that so beautifully.
The 5-minute question, it just kills me. We don't care. We don't want to know what you know. Just ask the question. That's it. One of my favorite questions, Cheryl, I'm serious. You know what my favorite? Why?
What?
Why? That's all. That's
exactly.
It.
I've just been thinking about that very thing and putting together my presentation for MUFON. And that's going to be a part of my presentation. It's interesting that you should bring that up, because that's always been in the back of my mind. If I do a talk show again, which maybe I will, that's really my focus, because why should I care about that story? Why should you care? Why are they spraying things in the sky that fall on us? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or why is a very, very important word, and I think it's underrated.
Yes. Why, Cheryl?
Yes, why?
Why? And
we should just do a show called Why.
Yes, it is so. And for any host out there that's listening, these are words of wisdom. The shorter the question, the better. Why?
Exactly.
And it was painful for me to learn too, as well. And and I'm not going to ramble. This show's not about me, Cheryl. It's about you.
Well, but that's all right. I'd rather interview you. Could I just interview you tonight?
Yeah, you can. You can. We'll do that in the next break. So, how do you go from pots and pans to a network? Whether it's local or whatever. How did you make that transition? How did that come about?
Well, I can throw you out one that's even stranger than that. If you want to back up a little bit before the pots and pans, that makes it even stranger than fiction. I grew up on a tobacco farm. I grew up in a time when, we didn't have a lot, and there weren't these great vacations and anything you wanted to do, and we really even did not have an indoor bathroom. So I think I learned some lessons early on that were hard lessons. I grew up working in the fields. I worked in tobacco fields. I worked in cornfields. We had a self-sufficient farm. We even had the family graveyard on the farm. This is in rural Tennessee. And that's how I grew up in my early years. My mother was a school teacher, and I went to whatever school she was teaching at, and it changed all the time. And so it was just ingrained in me from an early age that you work hard. You have to work hard if you're ever going to get anywhere. But what I knew early on, I don't know how I knew it, but I knew that somehow, some way, I was going to get out of that environment and have a better life for myself, and maybe even have an indoor bathroom. And at that time, I thought carpet on the floor was quite a luxury.
Did you get both?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
And now I like hardwood. So, but I wouldn't trade that background for anything, because I've been through a lot of tough times over the years, as we all have, as you work through this business especially. And I just don't know that I would have had the survival skills had I had everything handed to me on a silver platter. And so I'm thankful. I'm real thankful that I came up in that environment with just the basics, and with it ingrained in me that if you're ever going to have anything or make anything out of yourself, you're going to have to do it yourself, because there is no one out there waiting to put the silver spoon in your mouth. No one.
We're going to be up against a break here in about a minute, so I want to lead into the next segment with this. When you first started your career in journalism, and the audience needs to understand, you go from market to market to market to market. It is a standard career path,
Exactly.
And the quicker you get to the East Coast or the West Coast, the better. But nonetheless, you are going to pay your dues. But
right.
When you first started off, you were choosing your own stories. Did you have a news director telling you what to do, or were you able to go out and pick and choose what you wanted to report on?
Well, it's a combination. You have stories that you find yourself and you enterprise on your own, and then there are stories that come through the assignment editor or in the producers that they want these stories covered. So you can go in and pitch your own story. You may or may not get a green light on it, or you may be assigned a story. So it's all a blend.
And when did it? When did you start to see? We're about to. You know what? We can do it.
Okay.
Give me 60 seconds.
Go right.
When did it start to change where you started to see maybe the news director was being told what stories to bring on the air?
Well, I think as you go through the years, you sense that there's an influence that's coming from higher up, and I think you just evolve into that. And you learn how to accept it and go with it, because that's the job. And you still try to enterprise as much as you can, depending on your particular role and your particular job at the time. I've had so many different ones, so you fit the job that you have, and they're constantly changing. With every station I worked with from time to time, as their programming would change, your assignments would change from your position in one particular time slot to another, or a type of show that you were doing. So, that there's some direction coming.
Cheryl, just stay with us. One of my compressors kicked in. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Tonight, Cheryl Jones. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRAradio.com. Hey, everybody. What's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. And check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Tepe.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Tonight, Cheryl Jones is with us. Tomorrow night, Brian Forrester, right here on Fade to Black. Now, Cheryl, the reason why I was asking you that right before the break is when it comes to the paranormal and mass media, and even local media too as well, that subject tends to be treated with humor or is never covered at all. Did you ever try to cover, or did you ever cover a ghost story, a UFO story, and have it poo-pooed, or did you get it on the air?
Actually, you're right about those stories, and basically whether it's local or even at the national level. No, I never had a story on UFOs or on ghosts. I think you just know what stories are going to be approved and what stories are not. It's like when you take a job, you know what the expectations are, and you know how to dress appropriately. You don't go in overalls if you're on the air as an anchor. So it's not like there is a written directive sent out, but it's just you know what's going on in the environment that you're working in. But I think now that things are opening up on the internet, and there's all the social media, and there's all the information available, I think that's changing with more and more paranormal stories being accepted, especially with the with all of the alternative media going on and alternative radio shows like yours, Coast to Coast. Things that previously that would not be on mainstream news, but they are on the internet or on other shows. But not mainstream. It's not mainstream.
Is going to your news director with the UFO or paranormal story a bad career move? Would you? I
think in some environments, at least in past years, I think it is. I think it would be. I think you what you kind of know what not to do to put yourself on a list that you don't want to be on.
Well, my experience is this. We did the discovery of the Malibu base a couple of years ago. And when that happened, ABC News calls me and says, okay, they chased me down, producer, blah, 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 blah. They're going to send a reporter out. And they do, and they interview me. And the reporter tells me all of the things that I wanted to hear. Hey, dude, we're going to treat this as a legitimate story. Is there anything that you want me to ask specifically that you need to get out on the air? This is going to go out across all ABC News affiliates across the country and ABC Radio. And so, now's your chance. And I was like, and I kept telling him, I swear, Cheryl, I need my integrity to stay in place with this. Oh, don't worry about it, Jimmy. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. and sure enough,
famous last words, right?
Yeah. Sure enough, it airs, and they end it with the X-Files theme music, and they crack a joke. And I was so disappointed in the way that they handled something that was legit. They still turn it into something funny, ha ha. And I don't understand that attitude.
That's absolutely right. But I think they don't realize what you realize. They're coming at it from a completely different mindset from you and from us, because we take it seriously. But to them, they aired the story. They didn't, throw tomatoes at you or whatever. And from their standpoint and from their mindset, they did a good job for you, and they gave you the credibility that they thought, that it should have. They can't resist laughing and giggling and making a joke at it at the end of it. They can go through a whole serious delivery on a story, and then at the end, they have this built-in driver system, I guess, that just says you have to lighten it up and make a joke out of it to be sure that people think that you don't really believe it.
Did you?
They're still afraid. They're still afraid to act like they believe it.
Did you think Larry King was sticking it out there a bit too far?
Too far in terms of you're talking
UFOs.
Well, I know. I mean, are you saying that he stood up for the people he had on his shows?
Yes, yes. He was the only guy. I don't even know if there'll be another Larry King at that level.
No, because look at his whole history. I mean, after following Long John Nebel and coming down the pathway that way, and he was, look at his positioning. He was in prime time on a major network news, even though cable, CNN, every night, so you've got several elements there. You've got the prime time, you've got the repetitiveness, and it's on television, and it's on CNN, a major cable network news organization, and it went on for years. So first of all, he had the positioning. Okay, and then this came along, and actually when he had all of the witnesses and Dr. Edgar Mitchell and all of the people that he had on, these were people who had been involved in our X conferences, actually, that Steve Bassett had been producing for several years in Washington, which I hosted.
Right.
And then James Fox, came along and put the people together in a press conference environment and made it more of a media event. And then Larry King picked up on that, I think, as a result of the media event that it was. And whether or not Larry had a personal interest in UFOs, I don't know. But he did do some very good shows on that, and I think it was really a statement for just to take this issue and to take these credible witnesses. These were not witnesses that you just find on the street or you meet in a bar and one guy says, "Hey, you won't believe what I saw Saturday night." Oh, it can't be any bigger than the one I saw.
Right, right.
So I mean, there were credible witnesses across the board, and from military to people who really brought something to the table, and I think it was a story whose time had come. I think that the way that it was put together, with the one big press conference with all of the key people there, even though they'd been together at conferences before, but to make it easy for the media. One of the things for the media, I think, is that you kind of have to give it to them like baby food. It's got to be easy. They don't want to go sit through a whole conference, but they'll come up and show up if they can get there and be gone in 30 minutes. And it was an easy media event for them. And I, as a booker on the show, and as you know, you're always booking your shows, you're looking for things, and that had the elements for it. And then the other aspect of that is that Larry King's show was an hour of talk. See, that's a completely different animal from the 15 and the 30-second soundbite stories. Or, they just ask a question, and by the time the host asks the second question, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time," and then, we'll catch up with you again later or something. But an hour show gives you time to really delve into the topic, and a show like yours does, a show like Coast that goes now for 4 hours.
Right.
That's where it is. I mean, that's the kind of show, that's the kind of interview that I enjoy listening to and that I enjoy, working on, because that's how you get a real feel for the total story. So I think that there were several good elements involved there, and I think Larry King did a great thing by having those, the shows on that he did then. And it was, it was the first time that this particular issue made it into prime time. That was a major network news, even though cable, but still, network. And it was on a show that aired every night, which the continuity is very important. You can't have just a special show once every 3 months and get anywhere with anything. You know what I mean?
Sure,
It's got to
sure.
be a competitive thing and a familiarity that builds.
It makes me wonder, too, with Larry, if it was the classic, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it Larry's belief in the subject that pulled the weight with CNN? You have to suggest the show. I want to do a show on UFOs. Or was it the audience that was driving it, and they decided to do the show? I don't know which one came first.
Well, I don't know, and I should try to find out that, because that is an interesting aspect of it, because you're on a show like that. There's a whole team of people. You've got producers, you've got bookers,
Right.
You got all, the senior editors, and so it's a whole team, and that doesn't mean that the host is the one that comes up with a show idea. It doesn't mean that the host doesn't. I don't know on that specific thing if Larry King actually, if it was his idea, or if it was someone else's, and because all of that blends in. I mean, there's no one way for that to happen, but there is a department called guest booking, and that's what they do. They're the ones that go, that scan the environment and
right.
see what's out there.
I could just hear, I was thinking, let's.
Yeah, and so
let's do a show about
one of
UFOs.
Larry's favorite questions. Where were you on 9/11?
Yes, yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about that too. By the way, I want to talk about that. I've got to write down. I got to write that down. We got to come back to 9/11. What got your interest into the paranormal and UFOs? What happened?
Well, I think I've always been one that had more of an interest in what's behind the headlines than the headlines, because there always seemed to be an untold part of the story, like Paul Harvey would say. Now, that's the rest of the story. So I think that's just kind of been a part of my mindset, that all of the stories in the news and everything we were involved in over the years was always very intriguing, but it wasn't the complete story. And I came to realize that there's kind of a disconnect, more or less, many times between what's on the news and what's really happening out there, or how people are really feeling about an issue, or what's really going on, voices that aren't heard, things that are happening that you would think would be news, but really aren't. And then it was very intriguing that so many things would happen, and you'd read about them and hear about them, but they were whisper stories. They weren't stories people would talk about. You couldn't even talk about them on the news. And don't you find yourself getting frustrated today when there are so many stories that should be headline news stories, and they're not even acknowledged?
On August 27th, there was a peer-reviewed scientific study that was published, documented, about the proof of chemtrail geoengineering. And the contents of it, the hazards of it, and not one mainstream media outlet picked up that story. And it's fascinating to me, and I know that, and certainly you had to experience this and witness this when you were at CNN, on a grand scale, where you are reporting by committee.
Oh, you are absolutely. The chemtrails. I mean, that is just. I was working at a station once upon a time, and I used to take pictures of chemtrails because it seemed to me you could tell somebody about those chemtrails, and those are just contrails. Well, no, contrails disappear with time, and chemtrails with the chemicals will expand with time. And then you try to explain how it's different. But then I'd get into little I'd say not friendly arguments or discussions where we had a different opinion. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to start taking pictures and come in, because it's one thing to have a conversation with someone over it, and it's quite another if you have a picture to say, okay, take a look at this. Well, now it's so common, the pictures of chemtrails were so common, but I'm talking a few years ago when it was first, starting to be acknowledged. And it's amazing how you can a picture to show someone is so much more powerful than saying to them, look up in the sky. What's that?
Right.
I mean, it's just phenomenal. But ignoring these major stories, I don't know what it takes to get people to realize and to acknowledge things that are beyond the obvious.
If a reporter today, some beat guy out there or gal, or is out there and truly investigating this and got evidence together, it would be a career thing, to go and do. But I don't even know, even if they were successful, if it would get picked up and reported on. What I was saying a minute ago about the familiarity,
being in a primetime situation and being, in a situation where something is repeated. I think that was a success. That's a success. One of the successful factors. There were several, of course, was Coast to Coast, because it's on every night. It has a long, time span for people to talk and to get really into the details of the conversation and the discussion. And the same, you can count on an issue like that coming up again. It's not dropped.
But let me jump in. It would be I would totally agree with what you're saying. And remember, I guest host at Coast to Coast, and I understand the influence that Coast to Coast has. I do. But what I don't hear is the next day Wolf Blitzer saying yesterday on Coast to Coast they were talking about chemtrails and blah blah. That's what I don't hear.
Okay, but it's not just that. It's all of the mainstream media, or we could say mainstream news organizations. None of them want to acknowledge alternative media.
Yes, I know.
I mean, it's the most bizarre thing in the world.
It is totally bizarre.
Like they don't know that there's some really, really accomplished researchers that they could tap into out in the rest of this world that would really bring some really great insight to their topic. And guess what? It might be somewhat of a different angle, but they would bring it with evidence, and they'd have information to back up their positioning. Look at Richard Hoagland, for instance, with his background. They never bring him in to talk about anything with NASA.
No.
Or the meteor that appeared over in Thailand today.
I'm coughing.
Oh, take some lemon.
You can hear it. The audience can't. I'm using my talk button. You can hear it back in the...
okay. Well,
so you're
I hope you're okay.
You're like, man, Jimmy sounds like he's dying. But the audience can't hear that, Cheryl. I'm quick on the cough button.
Good.
And I know that you heard when I introduced you tonight, one of the things that I do say, and I say it a lot, when I watch the news, I instruct everybody, when you watch the news, take that, whatever it is they're reporting on. It could be about kittens. It could be about a Christmas sale. It could be about ISIS. It doesn't matter. Flip it over 180 degrees and you're closer to the truth.
Exactly.
Am I wrong in saying something like that?
No, as a matter of fact, that's always been my position. And that when people ask me about the news, I say, well, you should listen to the news, absolutely, but don't take it for the as the gospel. Take it with a grain of salt, because first of all, it's just limited. You're just getting a piece of the pie there. Thank goodness we have the internet, and I hope and pray that that censorship will not become any worse than it is right now, and that the freedom of speech and the freedom of information on the internet will not be altered any more than it is now. I fear for this time that we're in, and journalists they want to keep their jobs, and that's understandable, and they know not to rock the boat.
No, that you're reading off the teleprompter, and your point of view is not coming into play.
Exactly. Unless you're a commentator, and then that's limited, because even the commentators that put their personal opinions out there, you know what I'm talking about. They go up to the cliff, but they do not go into the subject matter within that issue that they're talking about, that you can find on alternative media, and that is discussed in alternative media, and that's in everybody's mind. They won't ask a presidential candidate those questions, and it's not part of it.
Why do you think
let's just pick a topic here. Just as an example, take the vaccine issue.
Yes.
Take the vaccine issue. Okay, there are so many experts to tell the other side of the story. They are highly educated. They've been researching it. It's their body of work for their lifetime. They know what they're talking about, but they do not get a minute on the air. And so how do you call that fair and balanced?
When you have a lack of, okay, I'm just gonna put this out there directly. There's a lack of genuine work ethic when it comes to mass media too, as well. And what I mean by that is, you can go and watch Fox, MSNBC, and CNN at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock and listen to the lead news stories, and they are word for word off of Reuters, right? There's nobody has gone and rewritten or investigated the story or made a phone call to report on what they need to report. They're all
a new angle.
Yes, a new angle and some honest journalism, and it's word for word, Cheryl.
I know.
Did you have that same experience?
I remember, for instance, when I worked at CNN, obviously the headline stories are going to be the same many times from show to show. Not always, but if the same story led the show, it had to have a different approach. But that was a different time. But what really gets me, and I don't know how this affects you, probably the same way, when a story is breaking, or they call, it can be a breaking story for weeks and nothing else gets covered. Who in the world thinks that if one story is happening in one part of the world, that everything else stops? That the lawmakers are not behind closed doors in Washington using that distraction time to slide through some other devious laws and bills and regulations. It's just amazing to me that it seems like more and more they want to focus on one story all day long, 24/7, without taking a break to say, here's what's going on in the rest of the world or in other news. Remember when we used to have in other news?
Yes.
Around the world in 30 minutes?
Yes.
And you'd get a glimpse of all the headlines that were going on around the world. And here, you have one story. Right now, what drives me crazy is that it's all about the polls. The polls. What we have are poll networks. The reality is I'd rather hear each candidate in a presidential election being asked a laundry list. You have your laundry list of all the issues you want to cover, and I mean all of the issues that they won't ask, including the unspoken ones that they're afraid to ask. But I would rather see that, take one candidate at a time and say, what do you think about, the vaccines? What do you think about chemtrails? What do you think about the NSA surveillance? And, go down the laundry list. A story that hasn't been in the news in a long time?
What?
A story about the homeless in America.
Okay. I was just going to bring up Fukushima. Fukushima here, probably, it's certainly world-changing on an environmental sense, that is affecting so much of us. It's certainly all of Japan, too, as well, but the world's oceans and everything else that's involved with it, and nobody talks about Fukushima. And
exactly,
I just don't get it. The homeless issue is such a big issue here in the United States. We can't avoid it. We see it everywhere. Nobody talks about it.
Where are the homeless going?
I'd like to know where they sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
are they just disappearing from the streets? What's happening?
It's an unbelievable thing, and I don't get it. And it's back to my point earlier about news by committee, because I know that, you know, before they report a story that could be earth-shattering, they bring in lawyers. Can we get sued? Should we do this? What are the other aspects? Meanwhile, the story is now days old. Instead of reporting it the day that it's relevant and it needs to be spoken about, it could be 5 days away before it ever hits the network, if at all, because it was struck down by polling, by like you just said, by a lawyer, advertisers. You know, that all of this dictates what we hear on the news.
Uh-huh. You know what? Another a story, speaking of the election and polling, when have you heard a story about the accountability and the vetting of the of the votes? It's really more important who counts the votes than how people vote, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Yes, and what's really frustrating with me, and all of the networks right now are guilty of this. They're covering stuff right now that is not news when it comes to the elections. The elections are a year away, and we shouldn't even be talking about it right now. It shouldn't even be news for another 6 months. Mm-hmm. And there shouldn't be any campaigning going on. Biden thinking about running, and Obama chiming in, and all of this has, you know, we've got a country to run. And
exactly.
I don't understand why they're reporting about Trump being ahead in the polls by 30. But nobody, it's none of this matters.
Oh, and the polls change every day, and there's more than one poll. How do you know this poll, that poll, you know, XYZ, whatever? Which, you know, what is it with the polls?
Where do they get the information from, Cheryl?
They're not right anyway. The pollsters are usually wrong in the end. So why don't they learn from history? But they're spending all their time reporting on polls, and that time could be used in getting down to some really good nitty-gritty information. If they wanted to cover the political candidate or the presidential candidates, find out in depth how they feel about each of these issues that are very important. Mandatory vaccinations, mandatory. You want somebody to come to your door and force you to take injections that they won't tell you what the ingredients are?
Where do they get polling? Have you ever been polled? I've never been polled. I have
No.
never been polled
never
once
asked
a month.
me.
No. I'd like to know where this information. I always wonder where.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, you made a point earlier, and I hate to say it because I know that there's so many good people, and you know, people would like to be really good journalists and reporters, and there are a lot of good ones. And they put their heart and soul into it, but I just kind of think they're misdirected sometimes because that energy could be put on something that really meant something to the people. It's the same conversations over and over. Who's ahead, and what do you think this one needs to do to pull ahead, and what do you think this one needs to do, and why do you think this one may get in and may not get in, and on and on and on. And for the life of me, I don't understand why it's important to the people for a family of someone to be the key factor for why they run. The key factor should be who can be the most beneficial to the country.
Why do you think they have snubbed the alternative views on 9/11? And it doesn't matter which one. It could be whatever, whether it's the buildings were bombed, or the planes were holograms. They were planes, but the Bushes knew about it in advance. Whatever alternative view there is to 9/11, and I truly believe there was a conspiracy that went to the White House on that. I feel like that they knew in advance what was going down, and also the lies that were told at the United Nations and so forth about the reasons why we were going into Iraq, all, just smelled conspiracy weirdness to me. but mass media will not touch it.
That is such that has to be one of the most puzzling events in our history. How could that be? How could that happen? There were so many mysterious things that you would think in a regular situation, investigative reporters would be all over it. But we don't have investigative reporters all over the place like we used to have. Interestingly, those have kind of gone by the wayside. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
They're just, and you have people in alternative media digging into it, and quickly they're demonized. They're labeled conspiracy theorists. They're called truthers. Actually, I think the word truther is pretty much a compliment, if you think about it. But who doesn't want to know the truth about something? So I don't think mainstream media wants to acknowledge alternative media. Who knows why? Is it because they're afraid they will steal their thunder? They don't want to be second to the party, because alternative media usually digs it up much sooner than mainstream media. Am I not right on that?
And what about Cheryl Atkinson?
I worked with Cheryl, and when we were both at CNN, we were anchors there at the same time. And yeah, she's done a great job of steering away from it, and she's one who has taken a look at the situation and become, I would say, disillusioned with the situation and struck out on her own. So my hat's off to her, because what she has done in several different arenas, is on several different topics, is basically bring a little bit of those issues to mainstream. Those issues, for instance, I know she did some stories on vaccines, but those issues have been out there in alternative media. They don't get the time of day from alternative media. But you let a little bit of it sneak into, like in that situation, a little bit of it does manage to get into mainstream, and all of a sudden it's acknowledged.
And
so
would she...
I think alternative media has just needs so much more respect. How you get mainstream, or to acknowledge, or to give them the time of day. Look at Alex Jones. Some love him, some hate him, but you got to give him credit for getting out there. The same thing with people who are, who else would go to Bilderberg like he did?
Right.
Who else would report on Jade Helm?
Yes, and these are all, and with Cheryl, she obviously was getting too close to the fire on a few different things. And the next thing you know, her computer was getting hacked. CIA's involved. Eric Holder's involved. She's videotaping her computer being taken over, and
exactly.
And is that because she was, putting her toe into the water a little bit too deep, or do you think it was maybe the network trying to find out what she knew? It's a strange situation that she found herself in.
Yes, but it's not at all surprising. Not at all surprising, and I dare say that she's not probably the first to have found herself at odds in that situation. First, for it to become as obvious as it was, and to get to the extreme that it got to. But my hat's off to her for standing up. And look at the VA issues. It's almost like you don't even have to search for an issue. Just pick one. Just pick an issue. And if you look deeply enough, there's corruption, cover-up, people are lied to. I don't mean to be a pessimist, but I think it's better to be a realistic, to be a realist. And I think people are starting to get tired of not being told the truth and everything.
Did you ever find yourself in that position where you maybe knew Maybe felt like, and I don't want to jeopardize your career with this answer, but I have to ask: have you ever found yourself in a position where you knew something was different than what was coming across on the teleprompter, and you started to question what was going on?
Yes, and when that happens, you can you have to kind of tread there very carefully, because you got to work with all the people around you, and if you throw too much cold water on people, you're not going to be around to even do your job. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. One time I was sent on a live shot, and it was just a no advance warning, just a rush job, and go out to the steps of the Capitol, and they're going to announce a cure for cancer. And I thought, well, something is really weird here. This is crazy. There's not enough facts going on. I don't know what's going on. And come to find, I went out there and I said, this story is not here. It is not here. And so, I mean, there are crazy things happening. Crazy. And the reporters deal with that all of the time. And you might have an assignment editor who, for whatever reason, wasn't as sharp that day as he should have been. But you have to kind of double check your facts. But I did want to make when we were talking earlier about the alternative media, I do think, and also with the polling, like the constant polling reporting and not really getting into real important issues and stories, I think a lot, and I hate to say it, but I think that's laziness. I think it's lazy reporting. It's so much easier to keep going over an updated poll than it is to go enterprise a news story.
Sure, and this is the frightening part about Alex Jones, is as crazy as he may have sounded 10 years ago, as nutty as he may have been, he is sounding pretty sane today. That's
well, yes, and actually his programs are picked up in some conservative markets.
Yes,
it's
they
on
are.
Here.
Absolutely. And if he hadn't, Cheryl, if he hadn't have talked about the alternative views on 9/11 and made those films that he did and spoken up about it, probably the story, the status quo of 9/11 is what we would be about today.
I always tell people, it doesn't matter if you don't agree with everything that someone says. Step back and take a look at the bigger picture. They're giving you information that you can take it or leave it, but you need that information to put it into your brain and balance the other stuff with that. And then at the end of the day, you come to your own conclusion. I think that, I mean, my hat's off to him, because, my goodness, look at the things that he's done. Look at the Jade Helm coverage that we would never know. Look at the videos. And Dave Hodges does this, he connects the dots.
Sure.
And, there's many others. But if we didn't have access to that, if we didn't have that, and we just had what we see on cable news and MSNBC or NBC, ABC, CBS, or Fox, that's all we would have. That's all we would have.
Did you ever watch Newsroom? Did you watch that on HBO?
Yes.
Okay. Is that environment possible in today's mass media?
Well, I think in some aspects, perhaps. How did you feel about it?
That kind of, rogue journalism and going off of the teleprompter and citing your own opinions and actually working for a story and all of those aspects that I thought were great for television. It was, and Aaron Sorkin is a brilliant writer, but I just don't see CNN or MSNBC or Fox running their newsroom that way.
I think Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that kind of genuine work ethic is there.
No, I think ideally that's what we would like to think is there, and maybe that's what we would hope we could return to. Perhaps that is setting a standard.
Well, that's why Alex Jones and that type of alternative media works, because I think that they're actually trying to find out truth. They're peeling back the layers. They're going past the Reuters, news releases and looking at what really is the story. And that's why I was asking, do you think there is a possibility for, a news service like Newsroom in mass media today? Could it even be possible?
It would be nice to say that it's possible, but I don't know if it would be allowed.
Well,
I mean,
you know what? I'll bring this up, Cheryl. Sorry to cut you off, but they did that whole season on the RNC. Remember in the debate? And how they went against the RNC, and they were just blazing a new trail, and and all of this infighting, and how they were going to do this debate. Do you honestly think Fox would go up against the RNC and
No.
dictate how they were going to do a Republican debate, and they were going to do it their way?
No.
It would never happen, would it?
Well, no. I mean, with the exception of going up against, throwing out a gotcha question to Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not.
That would have been all right. Different people have different opinions on how that came across. But it would have been, if you're going to do that to one person, it's not fair not to do it to everybody else either. How are you going to ask it's like asking the question, when did you quit beating your wife? There is no way you can.
Yeah, and you know what? There was 8 other guys up there, or 7 or whatever. They all should have had the same question.
That's what something that was equally as gotcha as that one was to him.
Yeah, it was pretty tasteless. It had nothing to do with the debate.
It really had nothing to do with the major problems that our country is facing right now, and the prime time is so limited.
And I wanted to ask you about this too as well, because you have these clear lines in the sand where you have CNN as the Democratic Party network and Fox is the Republican Party network, and we're all cool with that. That's just the way that it is, and we're fine with that. But isn't it strange? Does it feel weird to you, because you were at CNN, that CNN is giving more coverage to Trump and the Republican Party than what Fox News is doing now? And that's kind of a weird flip-flop. And
remember, though, even Fox, when Trump started surfacing as a possibility in the election, their coverage was not so nice. They said he wasn't serious, kind of, would never make it. I mean, joking around. And, I remembered when I saw and heard that going on in the beginning. And then as he started gaining ground out in the grassroots, then they had to follow. But let's go back to the debates before in the last election. Remember Ron Paul?
Oh, I do.
Remember how they treated him?
Yes.
And I was so glad that he was in the contest and in the running, because I thought at least if with Ron Paul in there, he will elevate the bar in terms of the discussion of some issues that are very important, whether you agree with him or not. They'll have to address certain issues like audit the Fed, those kinds of things that Ron Paul is known for. And they would have him on the very end of the lineup. The camera would just barely get him. There's a whole lot of subtle production that that is very important. You can cut somebody out of a shot. You can not give them time on the microphone. You can not cover their. He would have rallies with, that were packed with people, and they were never ever on the news.
Well, it also must be frustrating for, and this isn't a political show, but it is for me to talk about how mass media tries to steer things. And definitely, Jeb Bush was the guy. And no matter how you try to prop him up, which is what Fox tried to do, if he's not the right guy, the public's going to figure it out pretty soon. And they figured it out on Jeb. And so no matter how much airtime you got or how much FaceTime you get, even if you're not worthy, it's not good enough. And now since they snubbed Trump goes to CNN for the coverage. CNN's getting all the they're getting all the viewers. Their ratings are going through the roof. And who they tried to support, everybody else in the Republican Party has fallen down so far, and now they've snubbed Trump. It's just really weird how it has backfired on Fox's method of operating.
Well, whatever people might think about Trump, and I'm not saying who I'm for and who I'm not for, because it's still too early in the process, but I find it refreshing that he is in the game because he is raising the bar in terms of discussion. He's bringing in issues that some people may not didn't want to be brought into it. And I'd say, and I hope he continues to bring in issues that he hasn't even brought up yet, because I think if anybody is going to bring up issues that people don't want to talk about, it would be Trump. And
Cheryl, you're right about that. And whether or not Trump isn't even the question. You know what's brilliant about it is, I can tell you right now, there isn't a Democrat or a Republican or an independent that was willing to talk about veterans issues, immigration issues, trade deficits with China and Japan, and what's going on south of our own border. And Trump brought up one thing that I brought up on this show a couple of times. Do you know that in the United States today, I could be wrong on this by one manufacturer, but I don't think I am. Today in the United States, not one television is produced. Not one.
That's absolutely true. Magnavox used to be produced here.
RCA. We could go on and on and on. We were all televisions were made here at one point. And today, all of that manufacturing that used to come out of here is gone. And there isn't another politician that even wants to touch that subject. And now they're forced into talking about it. And that's what I think is brilliant.
Oh, I think so too. And anchor babies. I mean, there's a business of people coming into this country. We're not talking about just Mexico, just to have their babies and then go back. And once that happens, I mean, you've got a forever line of generations to come. So, at least he's bringing the issue out in the open. Whether, no matter what side of it people fall on, it's good to have it in public discussion, and it's good for it to be fleshed out so people can learn a little bit more about what really is going on. And I find it fascinating that Trump doesn't have to ask anyone for money, although he says he wouldn't turn it down. But he says it would not influence his decision. Let's hope that's true. But I think that's brought some freshness and some badly needed, attention differences into the environment.
Well, the other aspect to it, it's really funny. We have a guy like Trump running, and my answer is to the rest of America: what did you expect? That's exactly what the
man is a negotiator. He's a businessman.
Well,
isn't this what our country? Isn't it a business?
Well, but also the rest of the world is looking right back at us right now, going, that crazy guy Trump is exactly what America is about. That's and so that's what I say. What else would you expect than to somebody come along at the right time and sensationalism and everything else and the circus environment and rich and everything else that comes along with Trump. But it's just like, you know what? If that's the best we can do, if you want somebody else, let's go find them. But right now, what do you expect to happen?
Well, and the other thing is, every time he's on, we get a free lesson from him in the art of the deal.
You got that right. Hey,
you don't even have to buy the book. From the standpoint of the other candidates, I think it's improved their. I think they've had to step up to the bar a little bit more. I think they've had to sharpen their skills and their messages. And, a lot more to go and a lot more time in the race. But I think it's been good for the race, no matter how it ends up, because what we really need is the best person for the job, the best person who can get this country back on track, whomever that may be. And they all can bring something to the table. I would expect him to probably start, not in the immediate future, but before it's over, naming the people he would put in his cabinet. He's doing very unconventional things.
If you or another anchor out there is an anchor for CNN, and you jump to Fox or MSNBC or Al Jazeera Network or BBC, would you notice a change in environment, or are you just changing clothes? Would it be the same thing? Are you reporting the same news?
Oh, I think there'd be some differences. Don't you? Don't you see a difference?
Maybe Al Jazeera or BBC.
Yeah.
But
sure, that one.
But not by much, though. I don't know. I don't know if you might be reporting more on the world news, but I don't know if those networks would have treated the Ebola story any different. It's all based on fear.
Oh, what a strange story that was.
Yeah, all fear-based. Oh, yeah. Well, why is that? Why is everything fear-based? Is it advertising dollars?
Well, don't you think if it's fear-based, then they can get us to do whatever they want us to do. Weren't we afraid when 9/11 happened? And wasn't that when the Patriot Act slipped through? Because everybody wanted to be safe?
And so then who is driving the fear story? Is it Washington, D.C.? Is it the Rothschilds? Is it the Illuminati? Who's driving the fear?
If you listen to Alex Jones, there are unelected people, higher up who drive the globalist agenda.
When I had read, we're going to be up against a break in about 2 minutes, Cheryl. Okay. When I had read that the Rothschilds own Reuters, and then Reuters bought out API, and so we had what was it? UPN, UPI, API, and we had like three different. Now there's just one feeding everything, and it's owned by a bank. Isn't there a monopoly law somewhere that says that can't be?
You would think, but it seems like laws are kind of out the window. We're almost a lawless society, aren't we? It's just, I don't know. It's really puzzling what's happening. It just seems like it's just a free-for-all. Black is white is black. Upside is downside.
Let's take our break. I'm going to come back after the break. I want to get back to the fear question, okay. Cheryl. We'll do that in just a minute. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Jones. And also, we're going to talk about Roswell when we come back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio.
Intelligent talk. Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst, Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Tonight, Cheryl Jones is with us. Tomorrow night, Brian Forrester, right here on Fade to Black. All right, Cheryl, I can go on either my local news here, KABC 7, whatever, KTLA, or I can go to the mainstream news outlets and get the first 15 minutes of every broadcast is all one fear-based story after another. Something is dictating that. Where do you think it's coming from? Is it the advertisers? Are they trying to sell Ebola vaccines or car tires? You know, what's driving the fear-based reporting?
Well,
did you ever question it yourself too, as well? Why are we doing one fear-based story after another?
Back in the newsrooms, like the going joke was, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, right. The theory was that if it had drama, if it was scary or gory or whatever, that it was a lead story. And while that's kind of maybe evolved over time, I think that when the subjects we're talking about tonight, with greed and power and control being part of the elements that have shaped what our society is becoming and has become, the fear is a part of it. It seems like everything that is happening in our society that that a lot of people feel like is not for the good, of the people, or maybe it's not in the right direction that our country should be going on. It's based on fear. You're scared to death. People are scared to death not to take vaccines. They're scared to question anything. That's one thing that concerns me, is that there's a chilling fear that seems to be at least being attempted to silence journalists and to keep them muzzled. And so I don't know, I don't know what we can do to change that. But the social media, the information on the internet, I think information is the key. And certainly people are learning more and more. We've never, ever had so much information available to us. And so easy. You just go to the internet, you want to research something, click, 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 and you can find what you want, at least for now. Let's hope that freedom continues.
Why do you think there's this feeling? Well, I hope that you share this opinion. When you watch the news, certainly in the last 6 months to a year, there's been this drastic change about racism in America, and the police are bad, and it's one thing after another where they're mass killings, and like they're trying to promote a revolution, like they're trying to instigate this problem here, and I don't sense that feeling here in Los Angeles. I don't feel this feeling, but they're trying to make it like it's tangible.
Exactly.
What's there to gain from that? It's certainly from the Washington perspective. And do you feel the same shift in the flavor of reporting?
Yes, it's really troublesome when the races aren't treated equally, and whether I feel like there's a big organization and a big driving force of control behind it, and the people that you see on the news and advocating violence and participating in violence could very well be thugs brought in from the outside. Many times, I know a good friend of mine is a cameraman for one of the networks and covered all, who was there during all of the Ferguson events. And, he said that it was clear that the thugs, were not the locals. So there seems to be some well-organized group that, that it's their mission to keep the unrest going on. Wherever there's a little spark, they go and develop it into a big fire. So,
well, did you? You're familiar with the CIA's Project Mockingbird?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that there's the possibility that it is still active today, and that possibly some news anchors could be employees and mouthpieces for the CIA? Also, websites, alternative news websites, things that are out there stirring the pot from a three-letter agency agenda.
Well, don't you think that there are trolls on the internet? Don't you think that those are being employed? The Operation Mockingbird, the secret campaign by the CIA to influence the media, which began when in the 50s, and I think that there could be infiltration, and it seems like the internet is certainly infiltrated with people who want to create that sort of a situation.
What about Anderson Cooper? He's a CIA shill, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Tell me, Wolf Blitzer, he's CIA alumni, isn't he?
I worked with Wolf, and knew a lot of the people involved in the show, and I couldn't speak personally. You know, everybody has their own style and way of doing things and opinions. You know, obviously, my opinions wouldn't be the same opinions as somebody else. If I had a show that I directed and implemented in the way that I wanted it to be implemented and had the issues on it the way I felt they should be, or the issues covered, it wouldn't be what you are now seeing on mainstream news.
Right. One of the examples that I did want to bring up when I talk about flipping stuff over 180 degrees and looking at it, and you brought it up about the length of time something is broadcasted. Well, Ebola we heard for 30 days straight, at least 30 days. And I had said then, flip that story over. Ebola is going to spread across the United States in a matter of weeks, right? Well, flip the story over 180 degrees, and Ebola is actually a non-issue. That's
right.
The way that there is no scare. There is no Ebola scare. There is no...
They tried. I think it was on so much, and there were so many inconsistencies in that story. And I think enough people were following information that was coming out on the alternative media sites about it that they finally figured out that that dog don't hunt.
Interesting.
Maybe. I mean, I'm just
and
throwing
then they tried to rekindle it too. Last month. Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and it didn't. Have
you know
legs.
what? If you do a little digging, if it's still on the internet, and this is frightening. Look up the UN agenda.
Agenda
for
21.
the decade of vaccines from 2011 to 2020. And if you start digging in around there, you see that they're using Ebola as the reason for how important it is to, make sure that the majority, as much as 90% or whatever their figure was, I can't recall offhand, of their goal to have a large percentage of people on the planet vaccinated by the year 2020. Okay, so there's your explanation. There's where the mandatory vaccine push is coming from, the UN. People don't even realize, why should we be catering to the UN? Who gave away our sovereignty? Do you know who gave away I mean, people don't even realize that we've lost our sovereignty.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you before I forget, when is this drought, since you're a meteorologist, when's our drought going to end here in California?
Oh, let me get my crystal ball. I think that a good question for Jeb Bush would be, since the Bush family owns one of the largest aquifers in the world, where is it, down in Ecuador? That maybe they could pipe up some of that water and it'd be all taken care of.
Oh, you need to do the Republican, the RNC debate when it's on CNN.
I'd love to.
You need to get...
I'll tell you, this would be my dream, to see a real debate and maybe unended timing where you're not cut off at the end of the hour if it needs to go on, or maybe it's a 4-hour show or a 3-hour, like yours. But where several alternative media people, like you or Alex Jones, or Dave Hodges or George Norrie, but people who know about the other issues that will never be discussed could just sit there and these people would be asked questions about those kinds of things that a lot of people want to know about. They want to know, and they're not even discussed.
Somebody just tweeted, Mark Dunbar just said, Gary Webb's boss was confirmed CIA. You remember Gary Webb?
Yeah.
His boss was confirmed CIA. I did not know that. Before I just said that out. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm reading right here. They have acted, and they had protection of the CIA. The series provoked outrage in Los Angeles. Wow. Okay. I'm going to back off on that. I need to go and do some reading before I commit to that any further. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
How the media destroyed Gary Webb.
Yes. But and what about? I could just see Jeb Bush's face if you ask him about that aquifer.
But just think about it. Okay, we've got this water crisis, and then your governor, Jerry Brown, just wants to welcome as many people who, illegal aliens as want to come into the country. Please come on, But the interesting thing that people like, that are so they don't want any screening or any qualifications or whatever to come into the country, but they don't want to invite them into their home to live with them.
Right. Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, remember once when Nancy Pelosi said, "Oh, she would just love to have them in her home."
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's possible.
Right.
Your has been fulfilled.
Somebody just tweeted out, have you ever seen a UFO?
Have I?
Yes.
I have seen a light, and I would say it was a UFO because it was unidentified, yes. However, I was very interested in this topic long before that. And it was the situation that a lot of people have seen where you see a light and you're following it and it stops and then just does an about face and goes in the opposite direction. So was that from another world, or was that our military who has technology that they're not sharing with us? We don't know really which that is.
Where did you see this?
That was in Kansas City.
And, okay, a lot of Air Force bases in Kansas. But,
yeah. But they don't just turn around and go back. I mean,
right.
Like stop and just, like that.
What did was it just a one point of light? What did it look like?
It was just a point of light. Just a point of light.
And it stopped and turned.
Stopped and turned.
Quickly?
Fairly quickly, yes.
And you're a reporter. You're trained to observe and take notes and remember things. So,
and I was with two other people, and we did call Peter Davenport at the UFO Reporting Center.
I'm
sure you've had him on your show.
Yes, I have. And most people wouldn't take that next step, and I'm glad that you did. Did he say that somebody else had reported it as well?
No, not at that time.
And
no, but those kinds of reports are so common. Have you ever taken a look at all the reports that come in?
Yes, I do. Every day.
One incident or one sighting. Actually, there were several sightings. But remember the Stephenville
in
Texas?
In Texas, yes.
Yes, where there were radar reports.
Yep.
And Steve Allen, a pilot, and some of his friends, Steve, whom I know, he speaks at a lot of the conferences, and were eyewitnesses to it. But the amazing thing there too, well, there were lots of amazing things. They said it was just a huge. It looked like a craft. But at sometime later than that, there was a large sighting over a football field at a high school game.
Yep, Texas.
And it stopped the game.
Yep, stopped the game. Yes.
And the interesting thing is, you would think when that happens, that would be the lead story on the news when that happens, right?
Especially in Texas, where Friday night, it's the biggest night of the week in the state.
Yeah, but you would think it would be a lead story on network news.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, remember the Phoenix lights?
Yep.
Didn't it take about 3 months for that little story to surface on network news?
Well, no, actually, that one, I was in Phoenix that Thursday, and I came back to L.A. Friday, and I walked into my apartment. I didn't see it. I was in Phoenix. I didn't see it. But I walked back into my place here in L.A., and it was on the news in L.A., and I was like, oh, crap, I missed it.
But you're talking local news. I'm talking about network news.
Oh, I don't even know if it showed up on network news.
I think it eventually did as some small story, but I think it was about 3 months later.
And they made a joke.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it wasn't serious because, it didn't last that long. But
you bring up a good point, Cheryl. And I've seen so many times the video of that high school football game. That quarterback takes the snap, right, and he's going back and he puts his arms down and he's looking up in the sky. The officials don't know what's going on. The game stops. Everybody's looking up. Then the officials look up and they realize what's going on. And you would think that would be worldwide breaking news at that point. You would think. But they had it was on radar. That's the compelling thing with that particular sighting. Yes. And like I was going to ask you, you're trained to make notes. You're a journalist. You're an eyewitness. You've got all of your skills as a journalist come into play when you had your sighting, and now you are the witness. Okay, what would you ask yourself about that? I mean, would you think that you were crazy? Would you think that, if I was asking you about it, I would say, so do you think you saw a UFO? Was it us or them, Cheryl? What would your answer? What would your answer be?
You don't. Yeah. Yes, you would say, because you don't know. You have anything you say is a guess. We don't know. Nobody knows the truth about this. Maybe the government knows. If they do, they're not telling us.
What did your friends think?
Same thing. Just like, whoa, that wasn't from here.
And I do want to get on the subject of disclosure, and I can tell we're going to run out of time. I'm going to keep you on for an extra 10 minutes if you don't mind.
Okay.
Roswell, you're going to be speaking about this at the MUFON Symposium. I had on Larry Holcomb on earlier this week, and one of the we talked about this, but I talk about it often enough on this show, is how between 1947 and 1980, Roswell, it was a successful squashing of events by the government. They wanted that story to go away, and they did. They succeeded in that. We were truly minutes, if not hours away from every reporter in the country arriving in Roswell and getting eyewitness. It would have been the cat would have been out of the bag, but because they squashed it the way that they did, all those reporters turned around and went back home, and the story was squashed.
Right.
In your estimation, has anything else been squashed like that in the media so successfully? Can you think of it?
I think a lot of things have been. Because in the Roswell situation, obviously they had a plan in place in terms of how to keep the story from becoming a story, or the story that it really was, how to handle the media. They can come up with the craziest excuses. It's really an insult to people's intelligence. Plus, there was a lot of other ways that they controlled the people and kept them silent. But yes, don't you think? Do you remember the blackout on the Gulf War situation? Not the Gulf oil spill situation.
Yes.
Okay, when that happened, I mean, I don't think the blackouts and the pressure on the media and the censorship has ever gone away, and I think it's true in a lot of things. I mean, that's what all of these things that we've even talked about, the 9/11, the demonization of somebody who questions. You're not a patriot if you don't believe this. Look at the way the vaccine issue is treated. People are demonized if they want to ask a question about the ingredients. There's a movie out now that I think is it Australia, where they have a movie about the side effects and people who've been so severely affected, or young girls, by the Gardasil shot. Well, it doesn't play here in the U.S. There are a lot of things that we're not allowed to see, but that control of the media comes, I think it takes on a different look and a different format depending on the issue that they want to keep under control. But when the Gulf spill happened, reporters weren't allowed to get close to a certain area. People weren't allowed to talk about it. And I thought then that the media would just come unglued in terms of freedom of the press, but nothing was said.
Don't you wonder why there wasn't the one rogue reporter in 1947 when everybody else was told to return back to base, right? Mm-hmm. That there wasn't one guy going, nah, you know what? I think there's a story here. We need to get to Roswell. There's a reason why. There's got to be some kind of there's a flap. There's some kind of cover up. We need to get to Roswell. And I know that guy existed, but he was told, you know what? No. Get back to Kansas City. Get back to San Francisco. Get back to Chicago.
Don't you think that if people are threatened or blackmailed or whatever it is within, in their families, that will pretty much bring them to their knees?
Well, wasn't that the very foundation of our country, though, to have freedom of the press?
Exactly, and that's what's so frightening now. That's what's so so concerning, because I don't think we've had the freedom of the press that we've always thought we had. And remember, back in the time of 1947, in those years, people they were pro-government, pro-military, pro-everything, because they had an undying faith in the government. And now there's been so much revealed that is not, the book doesn't match the cover, that people have lost faith in, they don't believe everything they hear anymore. And I think that's healthy, but by the same token, somebody's in control of a lot of information that's not hitting the news. And you mentioned the VA story too. I mean, a lot of stuff goes on there.
Well, the checks and balances that were built into the freedoms of this country back in 1775, as 1776 was rolling around, one of the things that was there was, the checks and balances where we were going to have freedom of the press to make sure that everything was kept in check. And so you would have the protection of the whistleblowers, you would have protection of the sources, and the freedom of the press was able to disclose and to embarrass, if they had to, people into keeping things straight. And that very fabric, which I'm so proud of, seems to, as these days roll by, it couldn't be farther from the truth today. And when we
yes, I think you're absolutely right. You don't have the Carl Bernsteins and Watergate.
No.
And what I find troubling, and have you noticed this, that on so many of the mainstream news networks, they're going more and more to entertainment, and it's just like a chat fest, and just giddy stuff that's we know what the issues are that should be addressed, that we need to know about. And if people don't know, if they don't know the other side of the story, if they don't know why they should care, why should they be interested? Remember back to the NSA surveillance issue, all of this, that, Patriot Act, all that's involved in that. And people saying, well, I don't care if they tap my phone or listen to everything I say in my bedroom or videotape me through my TV or read every one of my emails. I'm not a terrorist and I don't deal with them. And so, they don't understand that that's not the issue. The issue is where that is going to, and the end game is the issue. Why is that happening? Why are they wasting time, money, and manpower on things that, against this citizen when, that all of that should be applied to the real terrorists, that the innocent citizens, the tax-paying citizens, the hardworking citizens are not the enemies.
Yeah, under the guise of, let's go ahead and record all 350 million cell phones in the United States, everything that's ever done, every email that's ever sent. Just in case we catch one guy, we can go back and check everything else.
But here's the thing. All of this technology is built into our computers, built into our cell phones, built into our smart TVs.
Refrigerators.
Really?
Yes.
So where, what's the purpose? There's got to be, that didn't just happen accidentally. These things aren't in the Patriot Act where, if people really read the Patriot Act to see the things that could be confiscated from their personal property and everything that's happening, they may not feel that it's a safe way to go for just national security. And people, it's all these things aren't explained, and it's not simple enough. And if they don't understand why they should care, they're not going to care, and they just go along with a quick sales job on something with a fuzzy title. Have you noticed how everything has a fuzzy, warm title?
Everything, Cheryl.
Uh-huh.
Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, hold on. There it goes. Have to double check sometimes. This is Fade to Black. When I come back, we're going to continue the conversation, but I'm going to talk. I want to ask Cheryl about some of the criminals that were right there in front of us that the mass media ignored. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fade or Not. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's JimmyChurchRadio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. See, my voice made it. I got to the end. Bespoke radio for the masses. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Tonight, Cheryl Jones is with us. Fantastic conversation. And tomorrow night, Brian Forrester right here. And Cheryl, this is what's funny is tonight I didn't do my disclaimer with you, which is it's just two people sitting on my living room couch having a conversation. And it turned out to be just that. I had a great time. It's just amazing. Now, why do you think Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld got a pass card with the media? Because they certainly were, I mean, when it comes to Halliburton and Blackwater and all of the side projects, up to and including the uranium that was coming up from South Africa or whatever, and they had a letter with the CIA and the British, and they waved that letter around. You know, everything was one big lie, and including not Schwarzkopf, the other general, the black guy. I'm brain freezing at the moment.
You're not talking about Colin Powell.
Yeah, when Colin Powell went in front of the UN with the vial of anthrax, and he's waving that around. You know, it was all just one big lie. But they got a pass card. The media let it go. We didn't have a Bernstein on the case.
You know, it's so puzzling, and you could also bring into that same conversation the Benghazi situation with Hillary, and you know, now the emails are more important. But she would probably like it if the ET, you know, if disclosure came about and it would take the. I'd say there's a prayer for that to happen.
Oh man, that's.
But
funny.
that is so amazing. It just seems like certain people are Teflon. And it doesn't matter how egregious the situation becomes. It's a flash in the pan as a news story. That's what I don't understand. And you and I, you know, we've touched on that throughout this. And that is, you know, a story can happen today, a major story, and maybe there'll be fragments of it, but it fades. There seems to be attention deficit disorder within the media. There's no connecting the dots from that situation that happened a little bit ago to today to the relevance, the importance of what it is in the overall big picture. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. Why? I mean, it's puzzling.
Yeah,
it's puzzling.
Knowing what we know now, you would think that Cheney and Rumsfeld and even Colin Powell, they should all be in federal prison somewhere. You know, crimes against humanity. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking at all. It's crazy to think that those guys got away with, you know, invading a country or two or three that quite simply didn't need to be invaded. You know, and Iraq is right there, but you know, we had no business invading Libya either. But it just seems like those guys got a pass card, and that no journalist out there wanted to go out and ruffle those feathers, and those guys got away with it. And history is not going to look back and say anything different.
Well, and then you have Jeb Bush, the third tier of the same family. Nobody has even addressed the issue of, why would America want a dynasty? I don't know. It's puzzling. It just has to be that there are powers in play that are so much more powerful than what we think we have. That goes way above. That can control everything that's happening in the media. I think the media can shape the entire attitude of society. They really can.
Yes.
And
yes.
they do.
Yes, they do. They do. Yeah, it's frightening.
And what happened in Roswell with all of that suppression, with all of those crazy stories, the weather balloon, there's no story here, all of that. I think that same concept never died. I think it just takes on a different, it's like a chameleon, the control factor, the shaping the media, the brainwashing, basically, the propaganda. Don't you think it just takes on a different customized approach with each issue?
Well, the rule book was certainly written in 1947. It was just, the method of operating was just set in stone. Okay, we know that this can work now. It's certainly, with everything that happened with the Manhattan Project and all of the secrecy that was going on before and during and after World War II, that they had to develop a way to control the newspapers and the television and the radio to keep things secret that needed to be kept secret. It was successful with the Manhattan Project. Roswell comes along, and they had an opportunity in the very beginning. The press release was written. And when that press release went to the radio station there and then made it into the newspaper, that was already worked over by the public relations department of Roswell Army Airfield. They knew it was signed off by everybody. They knew exactly what was being released, and then they had to go back and change the story. And once they figured out how to do it, it kind of applied to anything else that needed to be squashed throughout history. JFK assassination. Pick a story. Bay of Pigs, Watergate, whatever you needed, 9/11, whatever you needed to put a spin on, they figured out a way to get it done.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the same approach. But it just whatever the story is, it just has to be altered and adjusted to fit it. And
what do you think?
I'm concerned that journalists are going to continue to be silenced.
What you brought up Benghazi, what do you think? What do you think the story is going to be about Benghazi in 5 years? In that we know what the story is about the Iraq invasion now. We know that there was no weapons of mass destruction. We know that we know that we shouldn't have done it. We know that today. What do you think history is going to say about Benghazi in 5 years?
I don't know. Do you think that there will be anything on possibility of a gun running scheme being talked about, maybe as far as something that was going on there?
Yeah,
Christopher Stevens.
I think that there is a huge conspiracy when it comes to Benghazi, and I think that there are hundreds and hundreds of people that know the truth, and those people are from the bad side in Libya. They're from the good side here in the United States, the bad side in the United States, and the good side. And I think that there's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to Benghazi. And I just don't know. I don't know what to believe. I don't think, you know what? Honestly, Cheryl, I think what we know now isn't even the conspiracy side of it isn't the truth. I think it's way more far out than that. And I don't think we don't have a clue. That's my opinion.
I think you're right. I think that probably the truth on a lot of these things is so, like you say, so far out that it's unbelievable. What do you say? Because we do not have access to the facts, so we're left to guess. It's no wonder people don't trust what they hear anymore, the official stories.
Sure.
Because look what people have been through.
I
mean, it's event after event after event. Look at this toxic spill, in Colorado, in the river. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that?
Yep, that's crazy. And another story that got completely squashed. Well, I'll tell you, when it comes to Iraq, this is how far out I think that story is. It had nothing to do with WMD. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with 9/11. Had nothing to do with Saddam Hussein. It had everything to do with, let's go in, bomb that country into the Stone Age, and then we'll send in a bunch of American companies and we'll profit on rebuilding their infrastructure, and we'll take the money ourselves. What do you say, guys? Let's go invade a country and let's go profit. That's what I think. And that's a crazy way to look at it. But I think history is going to say that's exactly that, because we don't have another excuse for invading except for profiting.
Somebody has to be making money off of all these things. Anytime anything happens, there is a money trail. However it is, somebody's making money.
It always comes down to that. It's sad. Cheryl, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show tonight.
You mean
great.
We're done?
No, hey, I've got 10 minutes left. Do you want to keep going?
Maybe we better mention the MUFON conference or the symposium.
Yes, and are you speaking on Friday or Saturday?
I'm speaking on Saturday.
Okay, so am I. So I can't wait. We get to hang out.
Oh yes, and I can't wait to go to the Hangar 1 evening.
Yeah.
To meet, and I'll be able to meet you in person.
Yes, and it's the one thing about the hangout, but it's afterwards in the bar. That's where it's going to be happening.
Oh yeah, good. And I'll be through with my speech, and I can really talk then.
Yeah. and now, and what are you going to be? I know you're going to be talking about the media in Roswell. What's your talk going to be centered on?
Basically, American media, UFOs, and the truth embargo. And so I'll be going over all of that, how the suppression of the media happened and how it developed through Roswell and carries on, through the years, with some breaks, hopefully, in most recent times with reporting on UFOs and that whole issue. I mean, there are more things happening. There's the great Hangar 1 series that you're involved in, yes, with the UFO files with MUFON. And Ancient Aliens is a good show. I think we need more shows that could give more information, factual information, network quality production with regular programming. Regular programming is very important. We talked about that with Larry King Live and with Coast to Coast and shows that have prime time, but they're on in regular time slots, because if it's not a repetitive type slot that you can constantly continue the conversation, it's a one pony show.
Well,
and that happens with a lot of things on news now. It's there might be an explosive story one day and the next day it's forgotten, and I think that plays into this short attention span that people have.
You bring up a great point, though, Cheryl, and I think it's one that it needs to be driven home. Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, they would have one UFO special a year. UFO Live. Are they here? Some live show and some special. And then, we had Sightings, that TV series for a little bit. Then we had that series with Leonard Nimoy. But those were the exceptions. That wasn't the rule. Today, I think I cannot believe that Ancient Aliens is on its 8th, going on to its 9th season. That's crazy to me. Hangar 1, where we should have a 3rd season. I can't say anything about that right now, here and now, but hopefully at the end of the MUFON Symposium, we'll have an answer for a 3rd season. And the world wants this kind of programming. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, can you imagine? Just imagine. Okay, let's say you and I had a show, and it was in the same time slot that Larry King Live had. It's the slot. It's the time. It's the position. It's, not necessarily the person, but the people have to be engaged in it and interested. And But if it was on every night, and every night we could bring these topics that nobody wants to talk about out into the mainstream audience. It's getting into the mainstream, and I seriously think that there's just a disconnect. I think, whether there's a control factor that doesn't allow this kind of thing on, but I think it would be dynamite, and I think people would eat it up because people, when people have found out, they've known me from mainstream news, the conservative news approach, and they find out that I've been interested in this and I'm involved in it over the years. They don't want to stop talking to me about what they know and they think and they've seen and they've experienced. And so it's an underground culture that is finally been given some legitimacy through alternative media, through the internet, that maybe they're not so crazy. And I think the time has come. I think, someone should do it, whether it would be allowed by the powers that be, who knows. But I think it would be just an extremely successful show. There is no end to the topics that could be discussed.
There isn't, and I'll tell you, I have this has happened to me more than once this year. But I just recently, a couple of weeks ago, got an email from a friend of mine that I've known for about 30 years, who is now head of, I would say the company's worth probably $2 or $3 billion, right? Okay. And this is a close friend of mine, and he sends me this email, and he goes, Jimmy, I just got to tell you, man, I can't talk to anybody else about this, but my wife saw a UFO coming home last night. She took a picture, and it was right, and I can't say when and where, but he sent me this email, and this is a guy that needed to talk about it, that is the head of a major corporation. And in 15 years ago, 20 years ago, he wouldn't have written that email. He wouldn't have talked about it. It shows like Ancient Aliens, where and Hangar One, that lets people know that it's okay now.
Exactly. Yeah, people, since they know that I'm involved in this, they will tell me things that they wouldn't tell anybody else.
Right.
And I'll try to make this real quick, but when I hosted the conference at the University of Wisconsin with Richard Hoagland on God, Man, and E.T., which, to our knowledge, was the first time those three separate subjects had been brought together, which was an incredible thing. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was on a college campus, and do you know, the audience, it was packed. They did not want it to end. There were old people there in wheelchairs with canes. There were young people. It cut across all age groups, and people just they couldn't get it. They couldn't get enough information. They couldn't thank us enough for giving them a venue to tell about their stories. And these little old ladies and little old men would say, I don't have anybody to tell about this. I can't talk to my pastor. Nobody would believe me. They'd think I'm crazy. This is an untapped market. I'm telling you it is.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we have probably a good 10 different network channels now on satellite and cable that are all willing to step up and do the programming if the programming is good and it's correct. And and the success of when you look at the success of Ancient Aliens or Hangar One, hey, you know what? That it's on its 8th season because people are watching. You got to remember,
and that's those shows have been very important because hopefully they'll pave the way for more. They've proven that there is an audience for that. But they've also done something else, and they are both very well produced. It's network quality programming. That's what it has to be.
Couldn't agree with you more, Cheryl. I look forward to seeing you in just, can you believe it, 2 weeks.
Oh, gosh.
2 weeks. You're going to be here in Southern California, and I invite all of our audience to come on out down to Irvine, the Hotel Irvine, the MUFON Symposium. Come hang out with myself and Cheryl. We will be speaking Saturday night together, and you can get a single day ticket too as well. Just come on down and hang out with Cheryl and I on Saturday night, and the rest of the Fadernauts, and let's have a good time. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Is it over already?
It is. Can you believe it?
And just think, I was worried about having enough to say.
And in a minute, you're going to be reading my credits if we go any further. So thank you so much, Cheryl.
My pleasure. I've had fun.
Have a great night.
Same to you.
Bye-bye. Cheryl Jones. Cheryl Jones. And when it comes to exactly how I led up this show tonight, when it comes down to having questions about what you see and mainstream media and everything else, you just heard it. She is that is her career. And not only from CNN, but, in 10 major markets across the United States. She has been there. She has anchored Weather Channel. She has been to that side. Now, when you hear me say, take the story, flip it over 180 degrees, well, that's coming from me. But when you have somebody come on and have a conversation like Cheryl, that's when you have to stand up and snap to attention. Think about that. Brilliant conversation tonight. Absolutely brilliant on all fronts. Let me see. I had a couple of things I needed to get out of the way, and it is this. I was going to actually talk to Cheryl about this, but that is the U.S. Air Force has given the ultimatum to the owners of the property around Area 51. I don't know if you guys realize this, but they gave a last best final offer to the family of $5.2 million. And they have until Thursday to accept it. There's 20 people in the family, 20 family members. They would divide that up. Apparently it's about $250,000 each. But if they don't take that offer by Thursday, the government's just going to go in and take the land anyway. They're going to do a land grab and just take it. And today, the family said, look, back in 2000, whatever, they gave a date, it was valued at 13-point-something million dollars. So if you're going to do this to us, well, come back with something. And the government is sticking to this $5.2 million for this 400 acres. The owners include descendants of a couple who lost their hard scrabble mining enterprise after the Air Force moved in the 1940s anyway. The nuclear tests began in 1951. Their mine was mysteriously exploded in 1954. They ran out of money to seek reparations from the government in 1959. It's a crazy story. Just give them the 13 mil. Unbelievable. Okay, an investigation involving guns and drugs. The Justice Department obtained court orders this summer demanding that Apple turn over in real time text messages between suspects using iPhones. Apple's response? Its iMessage system was so encrypted that the company could not comply. The case, coming after several others which similar requests were rebuffed, prompted some senior Justice Department and FBI officials to advocate taking Apple to court. Well, they're not going to do that. That idea is squashed because now they're in a dispute with Microsoft. The case, which goes before federal appeals court in New York tomorrow and is being closely watched by industry officials and civil liberties advocates, began when the company refused to comply with a warrant in December 2013 for emails from a drug trafficking suspect. Microsoft said federal officials would have to get a court order from an Irish court because the emails were stored on servers in Dublin. And I've got so much more we're going to cover tomorrow. This is Fade to Black. I got to thank Cheryl Jones. What an absolutely awesome conversation we had tonight. Thank you so much, Cheryl. September 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, Irvine MUFON Symposium. Come check out Cheryl. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show's produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication by KGRA The Planet. Tomorrow night, Brian Forrester, right here. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network and cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.